pocket cameras are a true joy to use, especially if combined with a big APS-C sensor without an optical low-pass filter and a great dynamic range. And when you combine a camera like this with an amazing 28mm equivalent prime lens that is fast enough with an aperture of f2.8, and it is also able to create very sharp and detailed images already wide open, then it's pretty easy to fall in love with a camera like this. I've been using the Fujifilm XF10 for the last few months, and I can easily say that this camera is truly spectacular. But at the same time, I can also say that this camera is probably not for everyone, and I will also explain why. What I really loved about this camera, next to the size, weight and portability, was also the ability to have true film-like pictures, because with the Fujifilm color profiles and tweaks you can get very close to the look of film stocks. And while playing with the camera, I definitely found my favorite one, that is the classic chrome with a couple of tweaks. And if you're curious to know what are my favorite settings for the classic chrome picture profile, you will find a screenshot of the settings I've been using in the community tab if you are subscribed to the channel. This is probably the most stealthy camera you can buy for street photography, because you can easily hide it in the palm of your hand. And it almost looks like a toy, so no one is gonna take you seriously if you're gonna take pictures of them while using a camera like this. The camera can easily be used just with one hand while taking photos, and that makes the usability a true joy. Also because it is very easy to swap between autofocus mode to manual focus with fixed focus points at determined distances. So you can set the camera at 5 meters with an aperture of 5.6, or you can set it at 2 meters with an aperture of f8. Unfortunately, this camera is far to be perfect, and there are a couple of negatives that I think is important to cover, because while searching about this camera in the past, I couldn't really see or noticing anyone talking about these major drawbacks. First of all, the user experience of this camera is pretty frustrating, especially during the first week of usage. And the major reason of this problem is about the autofocus performances, because this camera doesn't really work well in autofocus. Even when you set the autofocus point just with a single point in the center, sometimes this camera is a little bit slow to snap the photo. In case you like to take photos with a 28mm equivalent between 70cm and 1 meter like I do, this camera doesn't really work for you, and it didn't work for me. The problem is that you cannot adjust and customize the presets for the snapshot, so that can be easily fixed by Fujifilm releasing a firmware update, but until then I don't think this camera is going to work for you if you're that type of shooter that likes to take quick photos at closer focus distances. And if you're thinking that you could easily fix this problem just using the manual focus ring on the 18mm prime lens, you are pretty wrong, because the manual focus experience is very bad. It is very easy to touch that ring that change the focus point, and if you want to acquire critical focus, it's also very difficult to do so. I don't understand why the focus scale is jumping too much from a point to another. It seems like the focus is fly-by-wire and not linear, but it's not very responsive, so it is very difficult to adjust the manual focus point with the focus ring, so it is totally unusable in my opinion. But in case you are not this type of photographer, the camera is going to be perfectly fine if you are using the preset that are loaded in the camera. There is actually another drawback about this camera, and it is related to the shutter leaf system. If you like to take pictures with a bit of depth, you will be limited with a shutter leaf speed of 1/1000. That means that if you're taking pictures during bright daytime, it's going to be impossible to use the aperture of f2.8, and you will have to stop down, because the shutter leaf is going to increase the speed
the closer is the aperture ring. So in case you need to take photos at 1 of 4000, you will have to stop down the aperture to f8. I truly believe that this camera is valid in 2024, and I really hope that Fujifilm will release a firmware update to give us the ability to change the snapshot presets, because in that way the camera is going to work amazingly well. If you are also in love with this camera, let me know what do you think in the comment area below. But this is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!